Welcome back to Educator Diaries. I'm Chantel.
I'm Maria.
And today is episode 19. So we're doing a little bit of a spin-off thing. We're doing looking at career roadmaps. And today we're actually going to be focusing a little bit on how to become a professional ballet dancer. And we have our in-house ballerina, the gorgeous Dana Little. So welcome, Dana.
Hi, Dana.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming. We'll just start off by saying to our listeners that I do know Dana. I've known her for many, many years. Well, I think it's been about, 16 years?
Yes, our daughters started in prep together.
Yes. So, just your whole journey about becoming a ballerina is just so wonderful, and I think it's be very inspiring for any young boy or girl that would like to take that pathway. So just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I am a mother of two, very happily married to my husband, Matthew, and prior to children, I had a very extensive long career as first a professional ballerina and then a performer. So musical theatre, acting, film, stunts, live action shows, lots of stuff like that. And now I teach dancing and have been teaching dancing ever since I had my first child, which was 21 years ago. And so after I had my first child, I stopped performing myself and have gone into teaching and have been doing that ever since. So I now teach dance.
So a long career, really.
My whole life. That's all I've ever done.
Wow.
So what actually inspired you to become a ballet dancer?
Well, my mum just put me into ballet when I was 4 years old
As parents do.
Yeah, so just dance as such. Like I remember when Paris was little, she did the whole jazz tap ballet.
Yeah, no, I did do everything.
All that.
I did everything, and it was just literally at a studio that was across the road from my primary school at the time, so I could walk across after school.
Nice and convenient.
And that's where I started my journey.
So did you, I know, again, when Paris did dance, and your girls have all done dance as well.
Yes.
But, not to sound funny, but did you show any particular, real talent at a young age? Is that why did the principal, do they call him the principal of the studio?
So, yes, I did have a lot of natural facility. I've always had very banana bendy feet.
Yeah.
I was always hyper flexible as well, hyper mobile. But what happened was that first dance school that I started at, when I was about 12, she sold the studio to a couple of ladies who came up from Sydney who were very successful in Sydney, and they came to the Gold Coast to start a studio, and they bought...
Right.
They took over this existing dance school. Okay. They were called the Ransleys. I think everyone in Australia who is involved in dance know who the Ransleys are.
Okay.
And they took over the studio, and from there,
it
became a lot more serious.
Yeah.
So, because they were star makers, really, of the ballet world, and they kind of could see my
They were looking, obviously, for talent and things like that as well.
Exactly, and they could see my potential. So they, gradually got me doing more and more and more and more ballet, less and less and less of everything.
So what age are we talking here? We're talking...
So 12, 13.
So you just started, you were in high school?
Yes.
Right, okay.
And then by the age of 14, I was actually the first child that the Queensland government gave special dispensation to leave school early to pursue a vocational... arts. So I was the first,
first one.
And so by 14, I was full-time ballet. So by end of grade 9, I had given up school and was doing... Well, I did school by correspondence, but I did dance all day, every day. And so I was kind of the first one that I was able to do that.
And your mum at the time, she was like, yep, this is what you...
Yeah, I think mum and dad knew that I had...
That talent.
And I was very passionate about it. Obviously, I didn't want to be at school. I just wanted to be dancing all the time. Yeah.
So when you say that you did, you were doing homeschooling, but you were doing training every day. So what involved the training? What was part of the training involved?
Literally being in the studio from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night.
And that was just...
So in classes, you would get
constant classes.
Constant classes.
Constant classes. So... you'd have your, you'd stretch yourself in the morning, then you'd have your first, maybe a syllabus class, then you'd have a little break, then you'd have a point class, then you'd have a little break, then you might do a solos class where you're learning solos, and you'd have a break, then you might do another open class in the afternoon, and then in the evening, all the normal kids come and the normal
classes start.
The normal timetable starts, and you do that as well. So you're literally dancing from 8 till 8.
Wow.
5
and how
days,
how
6
did
days
your
a
body
week.
cope with that, even as a young girl? Like obviously fit, but then did you have to make sure like diet and all those sort of things come into it as well?
That wasn't back then.
It was just
Back
whereas
then we
now
just-
children with sport, there's just so
more
much emphasis on
and
everything.
You've got psychologists and you've got dietitians and you've got nutritionists and you've got all these people working with you when you're at that elite level. We had none of that back in the 80s, 90s. There was none of that. So, no one was watching what you ate, if your nutrition was right, if your macros were right, if you were getting the right hydration, if you were getting...
Or even like the physio or the, like the roll, like I know Lincoln now with his soccer, he rolls every day, like rolls the muscles out.
No,
and
there was no one. There was no one doing anything. So we didn't have that kind of set up back then. It's, obviously everyone does now.
Yeah, was the emphasis on more back then? Now the whole stigma that you've got to have that perfect thin looking body.
There was a stigma about it,
Yeah.
and we did get weighed a few times, for a couple of years. But having said that, it's almost impossible to be anything but really thin when you're dancing
on your toes,
hours,
and you're on your toes
and
too,
also in the Queensland heat.
Yes, right.
And back then there were no air-conditioned studios.
Oh wow!
So you were in, so it was
sweat boxes.
You were in sweat boxes 12 hours a day. So everyone was super
thin.
skinny, no matter what you ate, because you were burning through everything. You were in a calorie deficit.
Did you ever get to one point, especially like being a teenager? Did you get to one point going, my friends are all doing this, and I'm
Never.
So you were just like, this.
I didn't have any other friends.
Oh, okay.
It was all
dance. Because that's right. Because you
Surround
started so
yourself
young.
with the same like-minded.
No, I never ever had any. I didn't even know what was happening outside the walls of the studio.
So did you ever come to a point like, your mum sat with your mum and said, I don't think I really want to do this anymore?
Never.
Okay.
There was
Never.
always that.
So it was just...
No, never. And you can't. If you're going to be a professional ballerina, especially, there's just no...
If you have that doubt...
Do you know what? My son is a professional actor, as you know now, and he's got management in America and he's doing all this, and that is equally as hard a path. And one actor, famous actresses have said, if there's anything else at all in the whole wide world that you think will make you happy, do that instead.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
And it's the same with ballet. Like, it's not even in your head that you couldn't do something else, or you're missing out.
That consumes you. That's
not.
It's all about that. It's
all
that or
about
nothing,
that. Yeah,
and you just
exactly.
know that's what you wanted to do.
Exactly.
So with were there other girls or boys at the same time doing the same thing as you? Like, so there was other professional dancers there?
There was we were students at the time.
Yep.
So we had the studio was very well known for its full-time program, and again, which was ahead of its time. Like every studio nowadays, or a lot of the studios, majority, have a full-time or at least part-time program.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, that was very rare so they were very ahead of their time, very ahead of the curve, knowing that you needed to be training at that level from early on. You can't leave it until you've left school. Not in this career, not in a ballet career. So no, we had a full class of full-timers,
And if there's like young girls or boys out there at the moment with dance, with like your knowledge now still of the industry and stuff, is there a time that it's, not to sound horrible, like too late? Like, you left your run too late. Like you should have been doing this like shit ages ago.
Oh, no, definitely.
Yeah.
With
Like if I
dancing.
said, I want to be a ballerina right now,
You've left it too late. I'll tell you.
Yeah, you've left your run a little bit late. No, there is absolutely I wouldn't even know what to say age-wise.
Yeah.
But definitely probably from about 10.
Yeah.
If you've not
Right.
been dancing and you aren't very naturally gifted, and then spend an inordinate amount of time
Like stretching.
honing
and-
that because you've left it so late,
Yeah.
there's just no
Yeah.
way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're on your path. You're doing your training full time.
Yeah.
You're doing your. What grade did you get up to at schooling?
Oh, 10.
10. Okay. So you did that. Now, did you start travelling with any of with this?
So then,
Yeah.
I went full time from 14.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was 2 other girls that were ahead of us, like older and more advanced, at the Ransleys, and they had just gotten into the Royal Ballet School. And my teachers had come through that as well, the Royal
Okay,
Ballet School in London, England. So that was the path. So if you're wanting to pursue it as a career, it still is the
Right.
best school in the world for training and producing the best dancers. And in my opinion, the Royal Ballet Company is still the best
Is the
company.
pinnacle, Right. yeah.
Look, everyone has their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Paris Opera's stunning. You know,
So what about
there's-
in Australia? Like what's like?
well, the Australian Ballet
You have- yes.
Company,
Is that-
and they have the
I-
Australian Ballet School.
Okay. So
But especially back then,
Yeah.
it was way. It
Yeah.
wasn't.
So
Wasn't near
how
the
did you
level.
get from here to there?
So you audition. So
Right,
you
okay.
send. So we sent a lot of video material. So doing various things like your normal class, doing solos, doing your point work. Then they required specific photos in specific positions to see your natural
like curvature.
flexibility,
Yep.
curvature, feet, turnout, things like that. And also all your exams, like what exams you've done, your results. Like it's
Yeah, it's like a big- a
any
portfolio.
submission
Yes, massive,
yeah,
like a big
process or
portfolio, yeah.
application process. It was a big application process.
So how'd you get the call?
And I got, back then I don't even remember. Back then it would have been a
Telephone?
phone call.
Yeah, phone call, yeah.
I don't know.
Telegram? No.
Yeah, telegram. Snail mail. Saying, yes, we'd like to offer you a position at the Royal Ballet School to start in blah, blah, blah.
And so, because you were so young,
16.
and so you were like gung ho, this is what I want to do.
Never
and
doubt.
how did
never
your mum and
doubt.
dad about you going on your own?
Well, they were fine about me going on my own, but it was the financial.
I was about to say
Yes.
financially how
Yes.
so
there's no GoFundMe's back then.
no GoFundMe's, and so at the time as well, I was. I'm not saying this in a egotistical way, but I was quite well known in
Yeah,
the ballet. Like
right,
I was one of the top in Australia
Yeah,
at the
of course you'd
time.
be, yeah.
And I was always on the front page of the Bulletin or the Courier Mail or doing this, doing that. I've won that or that, and one of the headlines on the Gold Coast Bulletin was family sells up to put daughter on world stage. That was the headline.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So my parents actually sold their house that they'd built in Palm Beach to raise the funds to send me to, it's a massive, and they both worked full time
Yeah, yeah.
and took on second jobs and stuff.
They believed in you.
Well, they
Yeah.
believed in
Yeah.
me, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never lived it down. They've really relied on me all the time.
As you would to your
so
kids.
yeah. So they sold their house for me to go to raise the funds. That's how. It
So when
happened.
you went over there, you had to board somewhere, or like is that how?
So the first year, when you're in it's a 3-year program,
Yeah.
the Royal Ballet School. And when you're in your first year, they required you to live in specially selected boarding houses
Okay.
that had a relationship with the Royal
Yeah.
Ballet School. So they were big boarding homes with like 20, 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom flats that were fully only Royal Ballet School students.
Okay.
Right.
That was back then. The Royal Ballet School now, this day and age, they've moved premises. So they're now, that was back when they were in Barron's Court in London, and they're now in Covent Garden. and they have their own dormitory facilities now.
Right. Okay.
But back then they had dormitory housing that were in the neighbourhood.
Yeah.
Right.
And you stayed there in your first year.
Okay.
From your second year, you can stay wherever you like.
Right.
Because by then you're 17, 18.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So my second year, I was very fortunate enough to be really, really good friends with one of the girls in my class, my year, Karen, whose parents were very wealthy, and they actually bought her a flat
Right.
on Talgarth Road, which is the same road the Royal Ballet School is on.
So that was
Amazing.
And so 4 of us, it was 2 bedrooms. So she shared the bedroom with her best friend, and then I had a bedroom with another girl from our year. And literally it was a 5-minute walk to the Royal Ballet School, whereas other people have to take the tube or they're living however many
Yeah.
stops away. But I was really lucky that Karen's parents
Parents had,
Whatever.
And was she Australian?
No, she was English.
English.
Yeah,
Oh,
she was
okay.
English.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever get homesick?
All the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I could only come home once a year because that was all my parents could afford.
Well, Yes.
You know. So obviously their holidays are different to ours.
Yep.
So June, July is their big holiday.
Holidays. Yep.
So I'd come home every June, July
Right.
to see everybody, and then I'd go back. So I went 4 or 5 years without a summer as well,
and
because
a
June,
Christmas.
July
yes.
is summer there,
Yes.
But winter
I
here.
leave and come home.
Yes.
So I went like
yes.
4 or 5 years
Oh,
without
how
a summer.
depressing.
It really does. Yeah, that really gets
So while you were there doing all this training, were you doing performances anywhere? Were you?
you
was it-
don't perform while you're in the Royal Ballet School, unless
Right.
caveat here, you are chosen by the Royal Ballet Company to
Do one of their productions.
do one
is
of
it?
their
Yeah.
productions. So, and I was.
Okay.
So whilst I was still a student with the Royal Ballet School, I did do various productions with the company as a student, but doing the same role as a company member.
Right.
So Swan Lake, La Bayadere, Cinderella.
Have you got those videos? Like
So you know, you are chosen to do those things, and then though once your training is finished, if you don't get into the Royal Ballet Company, it's up to you to go and audition for
Right.
every company in England, in
Yeah.
Europe, in Scotland,
Yeah.
and
So with you finished your training?
yes. So
4
I
years?
I was done in 18 months, so I was fast tracked,
Oh,
which
okay.
can happen.
Right.
So if you're particularly
Talented.
talented or whatever, you sort of skip a few
Yeah.
things and get into the graduate program, which it was back then. And you know, you've worked with the company, so you're kind of out a lot earlier. You finish the process a lot earlier. So at the end of my sort of graduate year, and you do a graduation performance at the Royal Opera House
Right.
at Covent Garden, and I had a main role in one of the ballets, and unfortunately just before that though I had sprained my ankle really, really badly in rehearsals for these performances, so couldn't finish performing with the company.
Oh.
So there were 3 of us that were doing that, and we were performing with the company all the time, and I sprained my ankle, so then those 2 kept performing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, the contracts went to those 2 girls for the Royal Ballet Company. So I just,
Shame.
and it was like that back then, you know, you sprain your ankle, you've let everyone down, you're dead to us, you're dead.
You're cut off.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So they sort of went to me because I'd sprained my ankle. The other 2 that, so, you know,
You're all the same, like
we're
pretty
all the
much.
same,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's fine. So I had to then go and audition for
all these roles and stuff. Like
for all the companies.
Right.
So the first one I chose was Northern Ballet Theatre, which was back then in Manchester in England. And what you do to audition for a ballet company is you take class. So you do the company's class,
Right.
and the director of the company watches you and decides, the director and other members, obviously the ballet masters, the ballet mistresses, whoever they might be, watch you do class with the current company members, and they decide whether
You're a fit or not. if
you're a
good
fit or
enough.
not.
And-
Exactly.
Did you feel at that stage you were taking like a step back?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
did.
knowing that the other two, like out of the three.
Yeah, I
and
did. Very
yeah.
much so. I did. I did feel like I was taking a step back. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll go and to one of the regional companies,
right.
whereas like the main company is,
Yeah.
Yes,
you know,
right.
still is. And so I really felt like, but everything's meant to happen for
Have
a
a
reason.
reason.
Did
that's
those two go on to anything, like not to sound
Well, they
horrible,
just-
did they go on to anything great, like
Yeah,
afterwards?
Well, they
like,
spent years and years in the Royal Ballet Company and got to soloist roles and things like, they were great dancers, like
yeah.
fantastic. And they had a long career with the Royal.
So they stayed with, like,
they did. They
yeah.
stayed with the Royal.
right. So how old was this? What age was this then? now?
18.
18, right, okay.
okay, still-
right.
yeah, still young.
Still
I was
young.
still so young, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did the class with the Northern Ballet Theatre, and straight away he said, yes, we'd like to offer you a contract. The director of the company at the time, Christopher Gable, who's sadly not with us anymore, and he was amazing. So I got a contract. So then, by myself, 18, I had to move myself to Manchester
Right.
to start a life with the ballet company in Manchester. Again, with no parents, no nothing around me, finding our own accommodation, trying to
navigate it all.
navigate
Yeah.
all of that.
So this right there is passion.
Yeah.
This is passion.
Yeah.
And dedication. Like I think with any careers like yours or like any other like sporting careers where it's that level, it's either all in or nothing. Like
yeah,
it's,
exactly. You don't even think twice about it. You're just so grateful that you've got a contract for a job, which is your end goal.
Yeah.
After a lifetime of training, that's your end goal.
And financially,
it's
is it?
Look, it's never
Were you-
equivalent to the training that
Yeah.
you've done
Yeah,
and the
and the time.
qualifications and the time. It's never equivalent.
Were you earning money while you were dancing for performances and things like that?
Not for the company, yes.
Yeah,
Once
so-
you're in a company,
yeah.
you're a professional.
Right,
Yeah.
so they're paying you, right.
Ah, 100%.
Right, okay, so they're paying
Yeah,
you.
that's what being a professional means.
Yeah.
You're in
Yeah,
a
right.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, once you're in a company, you're being paid weekly. You're getting your travelling allowances because the company travelled the whole of the UK.
Right.
Okay.
So it was a good company to see everything. To
Did
see
you travel
every-
outside of the UK?
No, not with the company.
Not with the company, right. Okay.
So yeah, I then had to pack up and move everything from London to Manchester, and including leaving my boyfriend at the time who got into the Royal Ballet Company.
Oh, okay.
So he stayed in London and I went to
Manchester.
Manchester.
That bloody ankle, like man.
I know.
But you know,
Things happen for a
it does
reason.
happen for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, then I spent the next couple of years with Northern Ballet Theatre and basically saw the whole of UK, Scotland,
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Wales, everywhere, because over there there's theatres everywhere and beautiful big theatres
theatres.
everywhere, and there's so much more into the arts
Yeah.
or work,
Work, yeah.
So they can perform everywhere and you can always fill a theatre. So yeah, I did that, and then that's where my journey ended in ballet, and I came home.
So
because
what-
I was desperate to come home.
Is that what it was? Like you were just like, okay, I've ticked all my boxes basically, and
Yeah.
I've done
So
this.
you ran
and,
about 20, 21?
Yeah,
20.
20.
Yeah.
Right.
And is that still like? So you're saying that's still the similar path for boys
exactly
and girls
the
at the
same.
moment? It's
Right.
still through there, because I do have a friend actually. Her daughter. She's not in England, I think, and don't quote me. I don't know if it's Brussels actually. That she's
There's there's some
she's
great schools in Europe too.
like,
some
Ballerina,
which weren't really around back then.
Right.
But there are some amazing, fantastic. Everything's come a long way.
And it's the same sort of thing. It's a big financial, thing to centre over there, and the homesick thing. But I think the same sort of thing. I think over there, there's not Airbnbs, but there's families that
Yes.
like
Take you in,
and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
As well. So, but yeah, so it's good
the
to see
same
that it's
path,
a still
because
path.
we're still
Yeah.
doing it now with I'm a teacher,
Yes, yeah.
and we're doing it with
Your students that are
our
coming
students.
through.
Yeah, like they're auditioning or they're there's really great ways to get recognised now through, well, there was back then as well, the Prix de Lausanne is a huge competition. It's only gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, which is held in Lausanne in Switzerland every year. And people come from all over the world to do that competition, and all the directors from companies and schools.
So that's just ballet?
But only ballet. And contemporary, but ballet.
Yeah.
And all the directors from schools and companies come to watch that week of competition, and at the end scholarships and positions are offered to place getters. Okay. So that's a really good avenue for people to be, seen, recognised. But again, you have to be at a certain level to even enter that competition, and you have to be accepted to enter that competition.
Right. So it's again, you've got to put together like a portfolio in order to
you've got to be able
to even get there.
Yes, you've got to apply to compete.
Yeah. So it's not has social media helped in that sense? Do people
for sure.
put themselves out there more? Like 100%. You said that you had a name for yourself, obviously because you'd probably won a whole lot of competitions and what have you. Whereas now, because the beauty of social media, that people can actually just video themselves, I guess.
For sure. And also there's all these ambassadorships now, like Block, who are famous for their point shoes and stuff. They have Block ambassadors, and then there's Leotard ambassadors, and Capezio has ambassadors, and
so people can make money to support their dream, I guess, as well.
Yeah, even just as a student.
Yeah.
And then you're also gaining a following.
Yes.
People know you, and that was never available. I would have loved to have been, that would have been amazing. I would have been all over that.
Yeah, and because therefore too, did you ever get anything like that with sponsorships and stuff like that?
I did for the Prix de Lausanne.
Yeah.
So to compete in the Prix de Lausanne, I was sponsored by a technology company actually based here in Australia.
Oh, okay.
So that was a sponsorship.
Because even just those point shoes are very expensive.
They are, until you get into a company, and then everything's
But getting through those years, even getting to that point, it's just all those
cost. Yeah, for sure.
Do they every time I watch a movie, right? Do you see?
You set a stage. Yeah, come on, that's what you're trying to talk about, isn't it? We've all got that in our head.
when they put on these ballet shoes, they're so beautifully nice and pink and with all the laces, and all of a sudden they start scratching them and rubbing them and making them dirty.
They pull it all out, don't they?
Okay, so what's the purpose of that? Tell us what's...
Well, a ballet shoe comes... Yes. A ballet shoe, until you're in a company, a ballet shoe comes one size fits all.
Right.
As in, if you're a size 4, you get a size 4 shoe, and it's not specific for your foot, specific for, some people have your bunions, or someone's got a longer second toe, or you've got a higher arch than Sally over there. Or once you're in a company, you get your ballet shoes are made specifically for you.
So like a foot mould or something,
100%. And your foot is measured, your foot is... And you can custom it the way you want. The shank can be however you want. The vamp can be however you want. The box can be however you want. So once you're in a company, that's easy. But when you're a student and you're just getting off-the-shelf shoes, for a start, when they darn around the ends and take off that's for balance and for non-slip, because ballet shoes have got a satin, so they're slippery. So scraping the bottom as well, that's for grip as well. And banging them is because you don't want to hear, can you imagine?
Oh, clonk, 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 clonk.
30 swans.
Hollow,
right. True.
It's really, they're very noisy. They're hard when you get them. So banging them just makes them soft enough to the point where you can obviously still work in them, but they're not noisy.
Yeah. Right.
You don't want to hear these on stage.
No, I don't think that's one like, but
popcorn. That was popcorn. So that's to customise what you do, and then everyone wants to even with ribbons and elastics, everyone does their own thing too.
Right, okay.
So if you need more support over your arch, some people put elastic over the arch, elastic around the heels so the heel doesn't slip off. There's lots of things you do to your shoes.
Wow, I always thought about that. Every time I watch a movie, I go, what are you doing? You're wrecking your shoes.
Those shoes are expensive. What are you doing?
So expensive, I know.
Yeah. So we're back in Australia. You're about 20 years old.
Back in the room.
Yeah. What happens then?
Okay, so I come back home and the first thing my father says to me when I come off the plane
Okay.
is, great, now what are you going to do with the rest of your life?
Oh, it was like it was done. Like
No,
you were-
because
yeah.
also they had sacrificed
Yes,
so much,
yes,
and I
right.
just
Oh,
left
yeah.
the company and come back to Australia where there are virtually no opportunities back then, especially, well, even now, there's only the Australian Ballet Company, Queensland Ballet Company, Western Australia. Like, there's not,
No, yeah.
they're few and far between. Whereas when you're in the UK,
They're
I mean,
yeah.
there's
And
just
you didn't- and that was-
dozens of ballet companies.
That didn't cross your mind to go, let me work.
No, I just didn't. I just wanted to come home, and I was burnt out, to be
Right,
honest. I was
okay.
completely burnt out.
Okay.
And I was really homesick. I was really weather fatigued to just grey skies all the time,
Right.
especially coming from the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
You know. So I sat at home for about 6 months, going,
Okay.
No wonder your parents like, hey.
"What am I going to do now?" I didn't really think this
Yeah.
through. And then the casino here, it used to be Jupiter's Casino. And they used to have the big multi-million-dollar productions that would run for 12 to 15
Yeah, I
months
remember-
at
I
a time.
remember that,
Massive, and
yeah.
they'd have
Yeah.
international acts like Cirque du Soleil style acts would come, and it was a huge thing. Anyway, there was an audition for the next
Yeah.
Jupiter's show.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll do that. My jazz dancing and everything else was just as good as my ballet. It's just that I decided to focus on that.
Ballet, yeah.
So I auditioned for that and got in. So that was called Jewel of the Orient Express. And that was an initial 12-month contract, which is just a blessing for a dancer because
Yeah.
12
months
months
is a
is
long-
a long
long
time.
time.
I mean, if you're in a ballet company, that's
Yeah.
the ultimate job security. But apart from that, if you're in a musical or if you're in,
Yeah, they don't last.
it's just a couple of months. It's a few months, whereas 12 months was just... So actually, there were people that came from Sydney and Melbourne and everywhere to be in those shows if you were a dancer because it was a really long contract. And then it got extended, so ended up being a 15-month contract. So you were in work for 15 months, which was fantastic. And so at the end of that, you had to re-audition for the next show. And the next show was heavily tap, and I'm not a tapper.
Oh, okay.
Like, at all.
Met your match.
Yeah, met my match. So I didn't get into the next show. But thankfully, then Movie World here on the Gold Coast were auditioning dancers, and I was like, well, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just audition for that, whatever. I don't have to go anywhere. I still can live
Yeah,
on the
at
Gold
home,
Coast,
yeah.
and I'm sick of going somewhere else. I didn't want to...
Travel somewhere.
Yeah.
I could have gone to Sydney or Melbourne and been in another big musical or something like that, or at least been auditioning for them. But I'd spent years away from home and I just didn't want to go away anymore. So auditioned for Movie World and got in. And that was probably the best thing it was the best thing that ever happened to me because your work is so varied there. You dance all day, but also they had the stunt shows at the time. They had the live action Maverick show. They had all the characters.
So you would go into the different shows as well? Or
You had to audition for them.
Yeah, but there's an opportunity there to do different things as well. Yeah.
So I got in,
Yeah.
and that's where I met my husband. He was Batman, and I was Catwoman.
As you do.
So Batman.
That's a true love story.
Yeah, Batman and Catwoman. They got married and had
Yeah.
puppies and kittens.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I met Maddie through that, and I danced every day. I did Catwoman. I did the Maverick Grand Illusion show, which was amazing. We got to perform to 2,000 people twice to 3 times a day, every single day, doing live action, which is where I learned lots of stunt work and lots of acting, and it was all in an American accent. And so as Catwoman, you have to be in an American accent. You have to learn to use the whip.
Right.
You do we did fight scenarios back then, so you learned fight choreography, again stunt work, the whip. It was
Sounds like so much fun.
It was so much fun, and it was so varied.
You
Yeah.
would have seen that. Did you,
Yeah,
you used to come up to the Gold Coast?
Yeah, I do remember when I
There's
did
not
first,
just one Catwoman.
Yeah.
No. She
But
might
I
have
do
seen
remember.
a Catwoman.
I think when I first met you, I think that was a
Conversation we had.
or I think you're around that time. Because how long were you at Movie World for then?
like 8 years.
So
from
you'd had
the
your
age
kids and
of-
everything by then.
Yeah, so
like
from the age of like 22
Yep.
to 30.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I was
'Cause I
at
think
Movie
that's when I
World.
first. Yeah.
And my husband was a performer, but he was also a stuntman and actor, and he ended up being in charge of the Police Academy stunt show.
Oh, I remember that
back
one.
then.
Yeah.
So he was the supervisor of that
Yeah.
back then, and so we got paid to play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we got paid to play. It was so much fun and such a world away from the ballet world, which is what I wanted.
So anytime during this stage of, okay, so you've got Movie World, did you ever think, I'd like to open up my own dance studio?
No, never.
Never?
Never wanted the responsibility
Right,
of
so-
owning my own dance.
Right,
And until I had children, I'd never even wanted to teach.
right.
It was only once I'd had my first child, Parker, that I went, well, I don't really want to go back to the physicality of performing every day because it was brutally.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes,
Because you're in the heat
Yeah.
and the sun as well at Movie World, and you're dancing. When you're dancing there, you're on bitumen in high heels in 30 plus degree heat in the summer.
Yeah,
It's brutal. You're working really hard every day.
yeah.
So that's when I went, well, I'll teach. That's my career's kind of over. I've had my first child.
So what age does normally a professional ballerina stop?
Oh, look, there's no
dancing.
rule anymore. There's
No?
no rule. No, I mean, I love the fact that in the Royal Ballet Company and in other companies now, there's multiple principal ballerinas going away and having their first child and coming back to being a
Wow.
performing principal roles, and then a second child.
So what
and coming back
we're talking 20s?
30s, in
Yeah.
their 30s.
Whereas
and-
that wouldn't have been
No.
once upon a time. But I think now that yeah.
Do you know what it is also? There's so much more support. Like
Yeah.
we touched on earlier where
Right.
there was nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
Nowadays,
Yeah.
there's so much more support. You know,
And even for, like, I guess it's also for women's careers or those sort of careers, people like going, like, once upon a time it would have been, oh, well, you've had a baby, you're done now, you're
Yes.
staying at
Right,
home. But
yeah.
whereas
Yes.
that whole thing's changed.
No, whereas
Yeah.
now, like,
just
there's,
how
there's
far you're-
Pilates and it's the physio and there's even the mental
psychological,
health.
yeah,
you
to
know,
get you
there's
back. Yep.
everyone, everyone to get you back
Yeah.
on top of your game. So it's such a different world.
As long as mentally and physically you can keep sort of
Yeah.
achieving
Exactly,
and heading,
yeah,
that's
so
right.
that's right. So there's not really any age.
See, there is potential. See, I've still got time.
Yeah. You keep telling yourself that.
yeah. Yes, Maria.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
As long
still
as
got
you
time.
feel good.
Yeah, yeah.
Telling yourself that.
But don't, our listeners,
Yeah.
I can give you private lessons.
Yeah. Get that leotard out. Dust it off, Maria.
That's so
Forget the leotard, just bend down.
You'd be like, oh, that's my back.
Yeah, you do need to be able to touch your toes at least.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the studio then. How did that all?
Okay, so
Yeah.
I've taught at multiple studios since starting my
Yeah.
teaching career because I've obviously now been teaching for 21 years and, like you asked, I've never wanted to own my own studio. Owning your own studio is a whole different ball game to just going and teaching.
Yeah.
And I've never ever wanted that responsibility and that it's just it's a
it
lot.
is, it
It's a
is.
lot. So I've taught at various studios, but I now teach at a studio up in Brisbane, and it's quite unique, the studio that I'm at, in the fact that there are 4 of us that are ex-Royal Ballet
Oh,
that
wow.
work there. So
What's the name of the studio?
it's called Kappa. It's
Kappa.
called Creative Academy of Performing Arts, and we've got a massive complex with 5 studios, a dedicated singing and music room, dedicated costume areas, and we have an in-house physiotherapist with reformers to do Pilates,
Yeah.
Right.
to rehab kids.
Yep.
So we have the whole setup is incredible where I teach now.
So you offer full-time programs?
Part-time.
Part-time,
Yeah.
right, okay.
Helen, the owner,
Yeah.
doesn't want to do full-time
Time, yeah.
yet, but she is ex-Royal Ballet, and I actually danced with her in England in Northern Ballet Theatre when I was 19 years old, and I now work for her.
Oh, wow.
Did you remember her from then? Or
Yeah,
not?
yeah,
You
yeah.
do?
That was a freaky. Do we have time to say that story?
Yeah, it's fine. You go.
Okay, so I lived with Helen in Manchester when I first joined Northern Ballet Theatre, and then obviously we were in the company together. We were friendly, but never friends. And when I came home to Australia, I kind of left my whole world behind there, didn't really speak to anyone again, just was like, I'm happy to be home, let's restart. That was that, this is now kind of thing. And so all these years went by, like 20 years or something like that. Yeah, loads. And my husband and I went to the prep information evening at the school that we were sending him to. And I look over and I'm like, that's Helen sitting here. She's British.
I was going to say,
Welsh.
I was about to say, is she even Australian?
No, she's Welsh. And I had never spoken to her ever again.
Wow.
So I went up to her and I looked at her and I went, Helen. And she took her a minute
Yeah,
too. She went,
like, wow.
Dana? And I went, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Anyway, she had married a South African, had lived in South Africa for 13 years, had two children like me. They decided, well, where do we want to live? We don't want to go back to the UK. They hate the weather. They don't want to live in South Africa because of stuff happening in South Africa. Let's emigrate to Australia.
Yeah.
Not only did they come to Australia,
but
they came to the Gold Coast, the same suburb that I live in, had a boy the same age as my boy, and chose the same school. Like, it's actually ridiculous. When I tell the story, everyone is like, you're joking. We didn't even talk to each other once I'd left England. And now our kids are best friends. They're more like brothers.
And then she started the school.
So she bought this school.
Oh, okay.
And I work for Helen
Wow,
now.
look at that.
Teaching lyrical, not ballet.
Right, okay.
Yeah, teaching lyrical, which I love because it's more free and creative.
Have you like through your teaching, you know how, sometimes you think you got these young kids and the parents go, I think you'd be great as a dancer. And you think, what are you doing? Why are you? Not that you want to squash anyone's dreams.
Every day. Every day.
But sometimes if the child hasn't got passion and the child's not dedicated,
it's going to be
like you said, you were like fixated. That's what you wanted to do, and
it's got to be your dream, not anyone
also,
else's.
I was. This sounds awful, but I obviously had it.
Yes.
Like I had the right physique. I had the feet. I had the flexibility. Like you, even a layman could see.
Yeah,
she's a dancer.
Yeah. And not to sound horrible, you had a head start because you had all the physical attributes that were going to help you as well.
Exactly.
It's a bit like a basketball player,
I'm like,
really.
Oh my God, these parents are spending all this money. Anyway.
Yeah. I think it's great, to be honest. You've got to be upfront and honest.
Well, they can enjoy it, but then also true too. Like you see phenomenally gifted children, natural children, whose parents really don't even know that they're that gifted, and they don't know that they're that gifted, and you have a conversation with the parent and the child that completely changes their life, and they go,
"That's amazing.
We never thought that this could be a career," and we're like, "If you don't pursue this, that would be a crime. Like you have everything. You tick every box." And they're like, oh, we didn't realise. And so that's also
that's actually really nice as well.
Yeah, because you go, no, they're phenomenal, and we will support them any way we can with.
But even like even at that studio, like to have that wealth of experience and the knowledge that comes with that.
Exactly, just staff.
You're not to sound horrible. You're not a dancer going, you can make it. You know what it takes to make it.
We all know what it takes. We've all done it.
Yeah.
We've achieved it. We've done it. We've lived it.
Yes. Yeah.
And we can all, so when we see someone like that, and we've just had one recently who this year has completely changed path and tack because she didn't realise and the mother didn't realise, and we were like, she's probably the most naturally gifted person I've seen.
Wow.
That's exciting. In 20 years of teaching.
Yeah, right,
and she's just phenomenal. And she's now full-time.
Wonderful.
And she's like 12, 13.
Wow.
And she's already full-time, but that's what she needed to do. Because she's
otherwise, if it doesn't happen then
No.
So
you're
if
going
she
to miss the
hadn't
boat.
I don't know. I guess other teachers would have picked it up because she's obviously talented. But
like I said, you knew that it has to be done now.
Yeah.
You have to move on this now because of where
so
what
it's
you've got to
really
do to
nice.
get there.
And she still comes back in the evenings to do classes with us, like my
lovely.
lyrical class and stuff like that, even though she's gone somewhere else to do full-time. But she's exceptionally talented.
Yeah.
Like she's just a born ballerina.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when you look back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Probably a lot. A lot.
Okay, what about leaving? I mean, I know you...
Well, you mean leaving England?
Yeah, leaving England.
Okay.
Let's leave Maddie and the kids out the way, okay? Just you thinking, your pathway there.
Look, things could have turned out very differently if I hadn't left. Very, very differently. I'd probably still... If I hadn't left at that point, I probably would still be like other friends and girls who literally still live there. And I probably would have still lived there and made a life
Just
there.
doing,
Right, okay.
So I think, it would have been...
How do you become a teacher at the Royal Ballet in London? How do
Okay.
you become that person?
Qualifications. So obviously, like any career, there are qualifications, exams that you need to sit.
So you weren't at that level at that age?
Oh, no, not at 18, 19.
No,
No,
right,
your
okay.
teachers are in their 40s and above.
They've lived that
done.
Royal Ballet life for many years first.
Yeah. Definitely. They've done it. They've lived it. The teachers that teach us have already had their professional career.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And they're now passing on what they know and what they're...
And what about your teaching here now? Like, is there other courses that you had to do, or your professional career is like
my professional career and the exams that I did as a student
enables you to teach?
Yeah, enables me to
teach.
teach. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So nothing real differently that you would...
Oh, look, like I said, I could do 1,000 things differently, honestly.
But you're happy? At the end of the day, are you happy
exactly.
the way that you did
And I think it does make me believe in a bigger plan, for sure. That,
okay.
try not to fight the system too much or fight
Right.
what's going on too much, because everything works out how it's supposed to eventually, even if
Yeah.
it's not immediately evident.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have met Matthew, I wouldn't have my children, I wouldn't have... All my circle of friends are still all my movie world girlfriends
Yes,
and guy friends from that day.
Yeah.
It's created a whole network in life for me, and I wouldn't have that. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I think we can all look back and
Yeah.
say we do things differently.
Yeah.
so what's one good advice that you would give any young girl or boy who dream about becoming a professional ballet dancer?
Gosh.
One good advice.
Listen to your teachers, even if you think that you know better.
Right.
Because I think I was a little bit like that.
Yeah.
I was a lot like that. I did have a bit of an ego, and I think that wasn't good. I think you need to get along with everybody. You need to respect the people that are teaching you, respect the people in positions of power and authority. Just be humble.
Yeah.
Work hard, be humble.
Head
and
down,
listen.
bum up, and
Yes.
dance.
Yeah, that's it. And keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Just do what I tell you to do.
Yeah, like not you know, within reason.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying off
Yeah.
my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look back, you go, oh, okay. Like, yeah.
Exactly. When I look back, I go, oh God, I was a handful. I was very talented, but
Yeah.
I was a handful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too,
Yeah.
those children that have that bit of spark, that bit of pushback, sometimes
think
there's a
so.
reason.
That's it.
what makes them
I
great
do
as
I
well.
do
So
agree.
it's very,
I do agree. It's a balance.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, look,
Yeah.
just humble yourself.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming today, Dana.
thanks, Dana.
It was lovely
Thank you.
actually.
I'm just going.
No, that's good. That's what we want.
That's what we want,
I've
you
got
know.
a
about your
long
story.
story.
No,
Like,
yeah, because there could be somebody out there that's,
Yeah.
thinking...
It just helps to
you know,
inspire somebody as
It
well.
is,
huh?
that's
Yeah.
what it is,
Not you.
Yeah. No, not you. No. I think I'm lucky too that I've been able to have. I'm still doing what I love.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm still doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from 4 years old to now, I've never done anything but dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in some capacity or other, whether it be
Fantastic.
performing, whether it be teaching. I'm still doing it,
Yeah,
and I
still doing living what you
living
love.
what I love. Yeah, which I think I'm really
Well,
grateful.
that's a really lovely story and lovely journey. So, but thanks again for sharing it with
Thank
us.
you so much.
Thanks for having me,
Thanks for coming,
guys.
And
Okay, everyone. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll
catch you next time. All right,
Thanks a lot,
ciao,
everyone.
ciao.
Thanks,
Bye.
Anna.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.